All right, here we go. Good morning, everybody, or whatever time you might be listening to this. It's morning now here in lovely Corning, California. I guess this will be part 10. Um, about the book of Revelations and other things. Another thing curious about, there's a parasite that kills Gog and Magog. Maybe that has to do with the things that are let loose, the locust or whatever, let loose from the pit. Have the sting of the scorpion. Maybe that's somewhere in there too. But anyhow, going back to the Jews, or the Israelites that did follow Jesus, and wanting, that would have made a reconstitution of the tribes of Israel, which is then if the woman represents Israel that's clothed with the sun and the feet under her moon, and the 12 stars represent the tribes, and the devil goes after the remnants of her seed, the Romans, and then the Jews themselves, or those who said they were Jews but of the synagogue of Satan, went and persecuted and killed them. You got to look. There was groups of Jews who fled Jerusalem, and you have where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. I think they were called the Essenes. And other groups, you had Masada, where the Romans trapped Jews on the hilltop there. Supposedly it says that they all committed suicide. I really don't know if there's any valid, solid documentation to prove that, and it wouldn't be beyond the Romans to have slaughtered them all and then said they committed suicide. It also, going with this rapture theory or something, and maybe Allah saved them and brought them up. But there's definitely not going to be no rapture like your Christian preachers teach. It's just not anywhere found in the book of Revelations that's going to happen. It's a theology that came about in the the 1800s. But anyhow, so I want to go back and study the historical events and stuff that happened, with what Rome did when they were in the lands of Israel, and the idea that they weren't the ones who really wanted to kill Jesus and stuff and everything. They were lockstep with the priests and stuff. They blamed Jesus for peace be upon him for gathering the people for rebellion. So, but so that's about that. I wanted to touch on that there, and the possibility of the parasite maybe is delivered by the creatures from the locusts and stuff. If you go to Genesis 17:20, for those of you out there, where the promise was only to Isaac and stuff, and don't count Ishmael as a legitimate son of Abraham, and you go back and read Genesis 7:20, and all the scriptures around that area there. Allah promises, because Abraham is upset and worried about Ishmael. He tells him, don't worry about the boy, that he'll make him a great nation, having 12 princes. There's a lot of Shia who teach that those 12 princes were the 12 imams that would come, and that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Arab lineage is from Ishmael. The Israelites and the Arabs are cousins. So you really need to understand that Abraham loved both his sons, and God made Abraham promises, and like I said before, he keeps his promises, for both sons. And those who want to say Isaac was the one Abraham was going to sacrifice, no. Isaac wasn't born until like 13 years, 14 years after Ishmael. And also, don't the blessings, usually the firstborn, have more of a right than any other ones? Aren't they usually the ones to inherit? So, and you're gonna say, oh, well, yeah, but it wasn't his wife; it was the handmaiden and stuff. It was still his flesh and blood. Doesn't matter who it was by; it's his flesh and blood. You tell me if you go out here, some of you guys that run around and stuff and everything, you go out here and you mess around and have a child by a woman that's not your wife, you don't think of that child as your flesh and blood. So, get real. And as far as that goes, another thing people get all excited about. Oh, Islam says that you can have 4 wives. Isn't that awful? Well, no, it's not awful. You go back and, or it says, they can, have relations with their servants, or they say enslaved, like what's that group in Africa? It's been running around kidnapping. It's not like that. It's in Islam. It's more like the household, of those of your household. That's like the tradition of Abraham. It's not sex slaves. You understand? Those who your right hand possessed were servants and considered part of your household. Not there for fornication. You had to take care of them. They had rights. They had, you had to give them dignity and stuff. You didn't take them as sex slaves. So, and as far as 4 wives, you have to understand the men were being killed. All right, you had all these orphans, and you had women who had no chance to get husbands. And so in the Quran it says to marry them, take 2, 3, 4 wives, and but there's also a verse in the Quran that says not for fornication. So it wasn't this thing, hey, four wives, you're gonna romp around like Hugh Hefner. And you got to look at our society. And the Quran says those who believe make lawful what Allah has made lawful and prohibit what Allah has prohibited. And the unbelievers, they prohibit what Allah has made lawful, and they allow what is prohibited. So this society allows all kinds of fornication and everything else that's prohibited, but restricts a man who's going to take care of the women he marries of having 4 wives. So right there you can see our society's backwards. And you got to understand, if you're taking care of a bunch of orphans, it would be really unfair for to have one wife and lay the whole burden on just her. So more wives were needed for that. Plus, because there weren't as many men, they were being killed in the battles. Um, that these women needed, because it was way different back then too, and that doesn't say it's not justified to have 4 wives now, but uh, leaving a woman to fend for herself and not be married, when she was came of age, and even the Bible says once she starts menstruating, and I think that technically it's supposed to be like a year after she starts menstruating to make sure, it's a because you have girls who menstruate early all the time, and then you look at stuff in our environment now that can cause that and stuff. So it was like a year after she started menstruating she could marry. Because she was of childbearing age then. But so the taking of more than one wife wasn't this perverted thing that a lot of people make it out to be, and and even in marriage in Islam, and it's supposed to be in every society, isn't consummated, um, uh, or is final when it's consummated. So like, a verse in the Quran says, that if 2 people marry, and then after a period decide to divorce, as long as there was no consummation, there's no sin. So some of these women were taken in and married just so they had protection and support of a family unit, so they weren't out there left to the ravages of an unbelieving society and stuff, and they were taken in, and then they're protected, but the marriage wasn't consummated. They're just part of that household in a lot of cases, and then when a man became available for them to marry, they were released from that household so they could go marry, and that option was there too. So people try and make it out to be this perverted thing and get all riled up about it, but the same people who oh my God, how could 4 wives, isn't that demeaning and blah blah blah. No, it wasn't demeaning. You're all upset about that, but then you teach these teenage girls in school and stuff about contraception and how to put condoms on bananas and this and that, and because you more or less have thrown in the towel and said, oh, they're going to have sex anyway, so it's all right for some girl to go out and run around and fool around with God knows how many different boys and men before she gets married. You're okay with that, or you're okay with these guys who they're players, and you're okay with Hugh Hefner rolling around, and you glamorize all that kind of stuff, and but all of a sudden a man that's going to take care of his household, if it's 4 wives and stuff, and he's responsible to them and before God to take care of them and be a just person, that you're all upset about. You're okay for all this pornography and stuff, but oh my God, don't have 4 wives. That makes you some kind of pervert. Oh, don't marry a 16 or 17-year-old girl. That makes you some kind of pervert. And I'm sure there are those out there who are like that, who just would want to marry young for those types of reasons and stuff. But there's no law saying what ages people have to be, other than a woman has to be a year after menstruating, and as far as boys, I think they're they've at least got to be of age, young men. So Anyhow, I wanted to touch on that too, because that's another thing that's out there that people use as an excuse to deny Islam, is that it somehow is demeaning towards women and stuff. Well, look at this society. Many of you out there will gladly go watch some strippers or pornography, and go to your call girls and all that type of thing. And you're demeaning somebody else's daughter when you do it. But you want to try and say a man who has 4 wives, and and they dress modestly, and they have a family unit, and they go and pray and stuff. Oh, that's so bad. You got it backwards, Jack. You have got it backwards. So you better wake up to it. But so I wanted to touch on that, and then like I was saying, there's so many things that are hinky with 9/11, and we killed not Obama, Bin Laden story, and all that kind of stuff. That there's definitely more going on behind the scenes than what you're being told. There always is, and it doesn't matter if it's the party on the left or the party on the right. When it comes to Council on Foreign Relations and the nation building and these big global plans and all that, both parties are on the same wavelength. They're playing ball. If you want to look at it as the Illuminati or whatever, all that kind of stuff. It's definitely going on, and it doesn't matter what party it is. Hopefully, Trump's being a straight shooter, and he's up against it if he is, fighting those that are in on all this global domination and stuff like that. I mean, he's taking a lot of flack for criticizing the intelligence agencies and stuff like that, from both sides and everything. And it's like, wait a minute, so did John F. Kennedy. He fired a bunch of them. They say that's part of the reason why he got killed. The wackos wanted to, they had Operation Northwoods. They put it on his desk. They wanted to, explode a nuclear weapon and blame it on Russia. Or Cuba. So, there are really demented people who rise up in positions of power. You have to understand that. We're not, immune to that here in the United States. So, and you get all over Trump, MS-13, he calls them animals and goes after them, these gang members and all that. So, oh my God, how awful is that? They're human beings too, blah, blah. Well, and then you turn around and say, well, we got to let these people in because them awful gangs, the murdering gangs and stuff, they're terrorizing people down in South America and all this and then you're going to defend those same gangs here. Do people have any sense anymore? Do you understand how insane that is? You're gonna go after ICE and Trump and everything because he's going after these gangs, and say it's racist and all this, but then out of the other side of your mouth you say, oh, we got to let these people in because of the gangs, the violence, and they're fleeing their actual, they are refugees and stuff. We got to let them in because of that. And it's like, does anybody think anymore? Or pay attention to what's coming out of their own mouths? Give me a break. And it's ridiculous. And now you got these groups in the Democratic Party openly running on a socialist platform. You want to know something? Those of you out there who are going to fall for that, you want to know something, that you're out there, you're poor and all this, and you think that's the answer? You know what's going to happen exactly if that's, the way the country goes and they have socialism? You're still going to be poor. Only difference is, when all that stuff comes into play, you're going to stay poor. There's going to be no chance for you to achieve anything better. You understand? Because everything will be controlled by the state. There'll be no chance for you to start your own business and do all this stuff and everything and obtain any kind of wealth. It'll all be taken in taxes for social programs. So do you understand that? You're still going to be poor. Maybe they'll give you $50 more a month in welfare or food stamps or something. But you have to understand that socialism isn't the answer. You know, and you know, they're playing you for fools. You know, there's a lot wrong with the capitalism, the way it's set up, is being, you know, the debt based and the usury, the interest collecting and stuff. There's a lot wrong with that. But being able to work and keep the fruits of your labor is not what's wrong with it. You know, it's wrong that they take so much of the fruits of your labor and don't let you decide what to do with your own money. That they think they can just, you know, for any reason increase taxes. You know, this country was founded, you know, on rebelling against a system that, you know, the taxes were being increased and they had no representation. Well, they sort of did. They had, you know, the King of England had governors and stuff over here. Didn't give a damn what anybody had to say over here. Just collected the revenues and all the benefits and everything that they received for being the governors, and, you know, shipped the money back to England. Which is what you got now. The federal government in Washington, D.C. might as well be the King of England and their governors. Because they're in Washington, the states have given all the power to the Fed. Our state taxes should be more than what our federal taxes are. Our federal taxes should be decreased so much that, you know, the little that you pay your state should be more than what the federal tax is. Because then that way you'll be able to directly confront those who are taxing you in your state houses, in your city councils, in your local governments, and saying, hey, what do you mean you're going to tax us for this or that? No, you're not. You would have more control, more say. You know, people aren't going to pick up and go to Washington, D.C. to hunt these people down and confront them there. But you can confront them in your own state house. You can confront them in your own city council meetings. You can confront them at their state offices. You know, your representative and your senator and your governor. That's the way it's supposed to be. Taxation with representation means, you know, it's done at the local level. Right now, the system we have going where the Fed takes all this money is just, might as well be back, you know, the King of England and his governors, you know, because everything's centralized in D.C. You know, that, and they don't give a hoot about. I mean, they're up there arguing about horse shit, and the country's been falling apart. All the basic, you know, things of the country, you know, securing the borders and the infrastructure and all that, all been falling apart. You know, they're you know, they're like they're in a house or in a neighborhood where all the water mains are broken, everything's leaking, and things are falling apart, and they're arguing over what they should name the street. You understand? They're all too busy with their own self-absorbed bullshit to be observant to everything that's going. That's why they're so shocked Trump won. He's the one saying, hey, I'm going to address all this stuff. You know, and you know, we need people who are going to address and get their hands dirty and say, you know, enough of the bullshit programs and all the crap we don't need. We need to focus on ABC, meat and potatoes. You know, let's fix you know, the country and take care of the things we need to take care of, and let's forget about all this horseshit. You know, which you know, I know we need cybersecurity and all that, and we got to be aware of what Chinese and other nations are going to do in the heavens there. But this whole Space Force thing, I think the money be better spent on look at all these fires now, beefing up the forestry or the firefighting departments across the country. You know, I'm sure they could use some new planes and stuff to fight these fires and all kinds of equipment and stuff. So, but anyhow, that's going into politics and stuff there. But you know, one of the things, the way they're working that socialist thing, all right, you know, if you're not white, if you're black or Mexican, whatever, do you consider yourself a minority? Because I got a lot of black friends who don't consider themselves a minority. because what minority has become to mean is like demeaning. It means less capable, needy, uneducated, on welfare, etc. When the minority acts and stuff like that, voting acts, were put in, it's because you were less in number, and so they thought there needed to be special provisions and stuff like that to make your voice more equal. Okay, so that's what it meant, was just less in number. But it don't mean that now. They play it as a special class now, and less capable and need welfare and all. That's when somebody says the word minorities, that's what comes to their mind, is welfare and all this other stuff. It doesn't come into mind that it was just giving more of a voice was the acts and stuff were intended. But why we have barrios and ghettos and stuff in the inner cities and stuff and everything in this country? It's because when they did that, they redrew voting districts, because to get black politicians elected to represent the minorities, they had to draw up the districts to where it was a majority of black folks voting together. Because if you had well-to-do or modestly well-to-do white people in that district, chances are they're not going to vote for a black politician. So they consolidated all the voting power into these blocks, into these districts. All right. Everything was supposed to be segregated, or they did away with segregation. And the schools and everything are supposed to be, not segregated and integrated, but they're not in a lot of these communities and stuff, and hardly anything is in those communities, is because the way they did the voting districts. Now they don't want whites in there. You understand? Because wealthy whites or business that pops up in there gives the people wealth, and if they have wealth, then they're not going to be dependent on welfare and all this stuff, and then the black politician is not going to get elected. You understand? So they want to keep whites and business and everything out of those areas so that they can keep being elected. So they want you in perpetual poverty in those areas. You understand? Their city councils and the mayors and all this and everything that are elected because of those districts want to keep those districts the way they are so they can keep being elected. Because if they become integrated and more diverse and have more white people living in those districts, chances are they're not getting elected again. Do you understand? You got to cut through all the bullshit on the news and stuff, and do some studying and look at how things are put together and the mechanisms, and how they work and stuff. You gotta tear it down like an engine and look at it. What's the cause of this and what's the cause of that, and that's it. That's why you have these large concentrated urban areas, you want to call them the hood or the ghetto or whatever, and stuff, and they want to keep it that way so they can keep being elected. Because if everything's integrated and mingled and stuff and everything, and there's more white people who live there, who aren't dependent on welfare and all those social programs, they're not going to vote for that black politician. You understand? And it doesn't matter. It's not about race. It's about the programs and stuff. If I'm white and I'm doing well, and you got some politician talking about socialism and social programs and higher taxes and all this and everything, I'm not voting for him. I don't, I'm not on welfare and all this, but all the people who are will. You understand? So they need more people who are on welfare to vote for them. So you gotta wake up and look at how things work and stuff too. But that's the whole thing. And it's time for that minority thing to go away, because clearly there's many more African Americans now in America. And if people go by those censuses, people in the hood aren't answering the census. The illegal immigrants aren't answering the census. You want to try and say there's 3 million, 5 million, 10 million or whatever here. There's way more than that. They're not answering that census and saying, of what race they are and where they're living and all that kind of stuff. you know, that kind of stuff, they're lucky if they ever see it. It goes straight in the garbage anyway. So you need to wake up to all of that stuff too, you know, and really, I mean, you know, I don't agree, maybe might not agree with everything Trump does, but you know, if he's cracking down on drug gangs and stuff like that, and criminals, and you know, people cut people up with machetes and stuff. You give me a break. You can't fight him on that. I mean, he's doing his job. Part of his job is to protect the people. And even though I'm Muslim and stuff, and I know they put that ban and restriction in and stuff, they called a Muslim ban, but really it's just an extreme vetting deal, and he's doing his job. Any leader around the world would, and if you know, if you're Muslim, you know, you might not like it, but that's he's doing his job. It's not persecution, because if it was gay white Canadians coming down into America and committing acts of terrorism, there would be a ban or extreme vetting of gay white Canadians. You understand? He didn't pick, you know, Muslims to do this against and stuff and everything. It's just the terrorists happen to be from that society, and the only logical thing to do is to look closer at that, at who's coming in the country. So if it was gay Canadians who were coming in and blowing stuff up or doing stuff, he would do the same thing against them. You understand? So, you know, people on the left want to line you up with, you know, oh, he's bigoted against Muslims and this and all that, and they get you in that left-wing party that supports the homosexuality and abortion and everything like that. And in my opinion, no Muslim has any place in that left-wing party. You know, start an independent party, conservative Muslim party or something. Don't be a part of that liberal party. You know, you don't have to swing all the way to the right-wing party who has, you know, the warmongers and everything else in it. You know, start your own party, a moderate, you know, independent Muslim party. Don't join the liberals. You know, you got to remember the story of Lot and Sodom. Lot's wife, you know, sided with that party, and look what happened to her. So don't go down that road. Okay, that was just a couple other things I wanted to touch on. The next one I'm going to do is going to be about the Antichrist, the Dajjal, because that strongly plays into the book of Revelations. And there's some things, lectures that Imran Hossein gives and some other people. And I want to throw my 2 cents in there on that, what I learned from them, and my own ideas on some of the things they talked about that, you know, I kind of have a different idea about. So that'll be the next one. All right, you all be safe out there. Get home to your families, and you know, study, pray, and try to do the right things always. All right, peace.